students, Mr. Abbott here again, and I want to go over Lesson 12, Interest, Credit, and Debt. Sometimes this can be a real complicated topic when it comes to dollars, loans, interest rates, future dates, exchange rates. So I just want to give you the big picture and break it down fairly in a rather simple way, I hope. Okay, so let's take a look at this. First of all, interest. Your book talks about interest, and it's about time. And the idea is when you borrow money from people, most times you're charged an interest rate. It's the rate, it's a, excuse me, it's usually a percentage. Gotta drink some of my tea. It's usually a percentage on the amount that you borrowed. If you borrow $1,000 and the person you borrowed $1,000 from, not me, says pay 8%. I'll loan you the $1,000, but you got to pay 8% interest. What that means is you pay back in 1 year over time. So what you have to do then is you pay the $1,000 back plus in a year period of time. Plus you got to cough up an extra 8%, which 1,000 times 0.08 is $80. So you pay back the 1,000. And you pay back the and you pay the additional fee, $80. That's interest. All right. The amount that you borrow is called principal. That's the principal amount of the loan. The interest that you are being charged is because the lender, the good person who is loaning you the money, they are foregoing. They are giving you $1,000 of what they have. They're loaning it to you. And they don't have the use of that $1,000. So, to make up for that loss of the use of $1,000, they're charging you 8% interest. All right? And on the other hand, 8% interest might be a good thing for you because you're going to borrow the money and then you're going to turn and use it to probably pay for something. And so, your book talks about that. It talks about the value then of money now and money later, and the idea that $100 today, next year that $100 won't be actually worth $100, and how companies have to pay attention to interest rates and the value of their money, because a company might buy some raw materials in the year 2019, this year, a company might buy some raw materials, and then next year, in 2020, hire workers to build or create things out of those raw materials. And then the following year, in 2021, sell that finished product, whatever it is. Let's just do it like this. And this year, we might buy steel, okay, to make cars. So this year, we're buying steel and raw material. Next year, we'll hire workers, all right? And we'll hire them and pay them in $20 to build the cars. And then in 2021, 2 years later, after we started this project, we're selling the cars. So that's why companies have to keep track. They have to understand interest and how the dollars, how our money values changes, okay? So it's like exchange rates. It's like if you're gonna trade dollars for pesos to Mexico, or if you're gonna trade dollars for loonies to Canada, you have to know what the exchange rate is. You know, how many pesos for $1, how many loonies for $1. Well, the same is true with money that you're comparing comparing current money with future money. But that's the big picture. We don't want to get into all the details. I just want you to get the big picture about that. Now, your book also talks about savings, investment, and incentives. We'll walk through the supply. There's a nice supply chart here, and this supply chart just simply shows that where savers, where people who have money that's available to borrow, and demand, people who want to borrow the money, They find a common interest rate that they agree to, all right? Equilibrium. We studied that just yesterday. So what happens is if you get a bunch of savers out there, now you have more savers, it shifts the supply to the right, meaning there's more available money now because people save. And when people save and there's money available to borrow, interest rates get lower. If you look, we'll walk through that on the chart, you'll see the interest rates get lower. And when interest rates get lower, it's an incentive for companies to do long-term projects because the difference in the money, the low interest rates, make it worthwhile. All right, we'll talk about that. That's the big picture there. And then, of course, your book talks about credit, a bond, and we won't, talks about bonds and banks and loaning money, and I think that's pretty straightforward. You'll probably get that. And then there's this whole thing about the pros and cons of going into debt. Should you go into debt, yes or no? And the book really comes from a libertarian view that says, that says people should have the freedom to make that decision if they want to go into debt now for something, for future, knowing that they'll be able to pay it off in the future. Well, that whole thing, paying cash and going to debt, is always an interesting topic. I happen to believe that it's really best to pay cash for everything because you don't really know if those future monies are going to be there, okay? But the author of the book does bring out the point. It's liberty. People should have the freedom to choose. But it's like if you're going to go to college, if you're going to take out college loans and go into debt and have college debt, but you're going to become a doctor or a lawyer. See, the thinking is, if I become a lawyer or a doctor, I'm going to be making hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I'll be able, when I'm making hundreds of thousands of dollars, I'll easily be able to pay off these loans, these student loans. That's the thinking. But my thought is, and I understand that, and you can do that if you want, the pros and cons, but my thinking is, you don't know what tomorrow will bring. There could be a change in the market, a change in the demand for the lawyers and doctors, that profession that you wanted to go into. You could have a change. God could call you into the ministry, and now you got but He'll always take care of you, that's for sure. Or you might have something in a health way that happens, and you can't do those things, and now you're saddled with debt. So you really don't know about future dollars. Paying for cash is Mr. Abbott's view, but the book does say, and I understand it, so we're presenting it, that there is a rationale for going into debt. Okay, that's the big picture of this chapter. I hope that makes sense to you. We'll walk through some of those details on Wednesday and Thursday. All right, I hope this helps. Take care.